wishing I could hold you once again, 'cause I'm scared of feeling lost tonight. When I wake up, it's you that I think of. It's true, it's so obvious, but I'm holding back because you don't want me like I want you. You don't feel me like I feel you. Oh no. And I must confess that you don't touch me like I touch you. Never blush, baby, when I kiss you, but you don't. And I must confess that I wish I'd find someone new and forget about you. 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 There's only so much that we can save, like a storyline and a few cliches. When we break up, it's true that I'm making up, it's through. I don't wanna pass the buck, but we're in this place because you don't want me like I want you. You don't feel me like.
Welcome to the Unbought and Unbossed show. Today is Thursday, May 13th, 2021. We are broadcasting live just miles away from the heart of Columbus, Ohio, from downtown Columbus, that is. Coming up on the show today, we are going to be discussing the Department of Justice, what the whole meaning around the consent decree is, and could change really come with multiple entities calling in and calling for the Department of Justice to come in. We're covering that, but then we begin with breaking news out of Minneapolis, Minnesota, because there's been some developments in George Floyd's case, and the state case against the other three officers that you won't want to miss. We'll begin with that, but before we get rolling with the show, we have a few things we need to take care of in our Let Me Begin With This segment. All that and much more to come right here, right now on the Unbought and Unbossed show. Let's roll, y'all.
Now listen here on the Unbought and Unbossed show with Devontae Goins. He's here to skip past all the drama by reporting on news stories that are relevant to Black America without all the hyped up false context that drives ratings. Our news deserves special attention, and Devontae intends on giving it that attention right here on this show, right now. This is the Unbought and Unbossed show with Devontae Goins.
Welcome to the show, everybody. I am Devontae Goins, the host of the Unbought and Unbossed show. Let us begin with this today. Earlier today, there were some developments in George Floyd's case in Minneapolis, and the state case where the three officers who were expected to go on trial in August, they will not be going on trial until next year. The judge stated that he did not want to begin the trial with the federal trial looming with the United States federal courts. So those three officers will be waiting until next year to stand trial in the state of Minnesota. So that's what we are beginning with today with that little bit of breaking news. Also, I want to give a quick shout out before we get into the show to Black Tech Columbus. There's their shirt right here. They're still just making their way out of here. They just had a phenomenal meetup here in the studio, and we are going to be having their president on the show next week to talk about all the groovy stuff that they do. And it was just awesome to see a bunch of not just Black creative, but a bunch of Black folks that are into the tech space here in Columbus getting together under one roof. It was a hybrid. There were about 15 people here in studio and another 100 or so joining in virtually. And it was just an awesome time. So I do want to give a shout out to those guys. Now, when we come back, I want to take a break really quickly because when we come back, I want to begin the show. And in today's show, we are going to be talking about and be covering with Black Columbus calling for the United States Department of Justice to come in under the direction of Merrick Garland, who is the United States Attorney General. Could there be a consent decree looming in the air? And a lot of you have reached out to us saying that you don't even understand what a consent decree is or what it does. Well, I can tell you that Columbus was very close to getting one back in 1988. But we'll talk about all that and cover all of that right after this commercial.
My name is Julius Bailey, and I seek to become your next city commissioner here in Springfield, Ohio. A vote for me is a vote for clear-mindedness, sharp and detailed analysis, and a care for people. I'm not a typical politician. I'm an administrator, a teacher, a servant. I don't promise what I cannot deliver, and I don't scratch where I don't itch. I'm a builder, an observer of talent, an organizer of people and ideas. I listen first. I act cautiously with a swift desire to meet the practical needs of people. I'm not going to politicize whether wearing a mask in public to avoid the spread of coronavirus or if that is such a restriction of free speech. I simply care for myself and others. I'm not going to be afraid to say that Black lives do matter while also fully supporting those law enforcement officials who are committed to safety, respect, and honor to the badge. My pro-choice stance. It does not make me pro-abortion, and my advocacy for same-gendered loving couples earning access to all of civil rights, it don't make me non-Christian. Springfield, we have real problems. We must broaden our business and job-creating base. We must support colleges like Clark State and Wittenberg who seek to hone the talent, minds, bodies of our citizens to move us all toward greatness. You know, I want you to see what a political office ought to be. Springfield, Ohio. Let's build together.
If you're tired of mainstream media outlets selecting news stories and events that don't appeal to Black America, then become a member of the UnBossed Network today, where we are the voice of Black America and providing coverage of events and news stories that you won't hear anywhere else. Visit theunbossednetwork.com to become a member today.
So, welcome back, everybody. I don't know what I was thinking. I was just a little perplexed right there, jamming to the music. But let me do this really quickly because we still do have music playing, and I don't want the stream to get cut. Hey, Google, stop music. All right, so I'm not jamming out anymore to NWA. But anyways, let us begin with let's begin our show tonight and our conversation about consent decrees. As we all know, last week was, or really the last 2 weeks were busy weeks when it comes to reforming the Columbus Police Department. We heard the mayor and hey, Google, stop music. The music just doesn't want to stop, everybody. You all know I was jamming out. Google. Well, we are going to take a commercial break. One more, I promise. And we're going to stop this because the rest of the team has went home. So I'm driving the show by myself right now. I'll be right back. Hey, Google, stop.
Welcome to Cardwell Mobile Notary Service. I'm Leandra Cardwell. I run a full-service mobile notary company. We specialize in apostille, loan closings, structured settlements, and more. Wherever you are, I'll be there. Even in your home, I'll be there. At the hospital, I'll be there. Nursing homes, I'll be there. At the library, I'll be there. Coffee shops, you pick, and I'll be there. And yes, even remotely too, I'll be there. To submit a request on our website, don't forget to locate us on Facebook and give us a call at 614-999-0149, and I'll be there.
If you're tired of mainstream media outlets selecting news stories and events that don't appeal to Black America, then become a member of the UnBossed Network today, where we are the voice of Black America and providing coverage of events and news stories that you won't hear anywhere else. Visit theunbossednetwork.com to become a member today.
As you saw right there, everybody, we are live. Couldn't get the Google to turn off the speakers around here from playing NWA Fight to Power. So and F to Police. So hey, I had to get up and manually turn it off. Now, as we were, what we were about to get into in tonight's show is over the last couple weeks, everybody from the mayor on down has called for the Department of Justice to come in. But what I need everybody to understand is that Andy Ginther and Zach Klein, who is the Columbus City attorney, did not call for the Department of Justice to do the same thing as Black Columbus did. They called for the Department of Justice to come in and review the problem and to review the department. We've had enough reviews, everybody. We've had enough studies done. We know what the fundamental problem is, and now it's time for change. What Black Columbus is calling for and what Black Columbus leaders have all gotten together to do is they've all come together to call out and to call for the United States Department of Justice to come in and to investigate the Columbus Police Department. As simple as that. And with that investigation that they are going to do, could steer and hopefully lead to a dissent decree. And that's where our conversation and our coverage of this topic begins tonight. So the question is, what is a dissent decree? So a consent decree is basically a court-approved agreement on what reforms CPD, for example, will take and what kinds of timelines it will take them to implement those reforms. That's all a consent decree is. It's simple as that, but most folk don't like consent decrees. It's worth noting that in 1994, Congress gave the Department of Justice the power to address a pattern and practice of police misconduct within departments and to sue cities for civil relief. Consent decrees can involve any government agency, but are most commonly used within local police departments. And since that time, how many investigations and decrees are started each year has kind of somewhat become political, believe it or not. So back when President Obama was in office, there were literally 25 different investigations launched. One of the most infamous two of the most infamous investigations being launched were into the Baltimore Police Department and into the Ferguson Police Department. And out of those 25 investigations that were launched during his time in office, 15 consent decrees were entered into by the Department of Justice. And just to give you some stark contrasts, there were only 3 when George W. Bush was president. And when that occupant, who's Trump, whose name is Trump, was in office, there was only one investigation in his 4-year time. While he was in office. And no, there was no consent decree entered into. Now, it is worth noting that the Department of Justice also withdrew from the potential of consent decrees in Baltimore and Chicago that had started being negotiated under the Obama administration. So let me repeat that one more time, because I don't think some of you get the gravity of how important these consent decrees are when it comes to reforming police departments, and how important a consent decree is going to be when it comes to reforming the Columbus Division of Police that sits on Mount Carney Boulevard, the headquarters. Anyways, so when the former occupant of the White House, whose name is Trump, some of y'all call him Orange Oompa, some worse, when he was in office, his Department of Justice withdrew from 2 potential consent decrees that were in the process of being negotiated under the Obama administration with Baltimore and Chicago. And we all know how corrupt the Baltimore and Chicago police departments are. It's safe to say that the Columbus Police Department isn't too much far off from the corruptness that Baltimore and Chicago looks like. I'm just saying. So, now that you understand what consent decrees are, let's now discuss how consent decrees work. So basically, if there is an investigation by the Civil Rights Division of the Department of Justice, and they find that there are patterns or practices of unconstitutional policing, there can only be 2 primary options for resolving those. The first option is that the city, the police department, and the Department of Justice, the DOJ, enter into a voluntary agreement where they determine what changes need to be made and a timeline for implementation of those changes. Or the second option is the DOJ can issue a consent decree which would require the department and the city to implement those specific changes. So what Black Columbus leaders are simply doing at this hour is they are calling on the DOJ to not only to, number one, come in to investigate the Columbus Police Department, not review like the mayor and the city attorney wants them to do, because we don't need another damn review. We already know what the problem is. We know that the practices and the policies that they have in place need to be changed. We know they need to be reformed. We've had all of these studies done. We need a consent decree. So what we are simply calling on is the Department of Justice to come in and to begin an investigation, and to allow their investigation, not to enter into a voluntary agreement with the DOJ, Columbus Police Department, and the city. No, we need them to enter into a consent decrement right now. We need them to enter into a consent decrement which will force the city to implement those reforms in a certain timeline. I'm sure all of you know by now, or you should know by now, that the mayor has said he's going to put and replace and install a chief from the outside by the end of the month. That's what he said. But you know what I find interesting is that out of the 35 or 37 people that applied for the job, there were 9 finalists. And out of those 9 finalists, the citizens have not got the opportunity to speak to any one of them or to even tell the mayor that we aren't going to stand for that any longer. I bet most of you didn't even realize that one of the 9 finalists is corrupt. The guy from Dallas, his name is slipping out of my mind. I believe his name is Derek Dennis, and he's with the Dallas Police Department. He was under investigation within the last 5 years, and yet Andy Ginther, y'all's mayor, who y'all elected into office because we didn't put anybody up against him to run against him, I could tell you this: he will never run unopposed in this city again. But the mayor has allowed one of the finalists for chief to become a person who is under and who has been under investigation in the last 5 years. But yet he's saying he's bringing about change and he's going to bring in an outsider to bring in this reform. You know, the other thing I don't get about the 9 finalists that are on that list is the mayor all of a sudden thinks we in Black Columbus are going to get off his ass and quit coming for his ass and quit holding his ass accountable if he appoints to the position of chief a black person from the outside. No, baby, we aren't going to stop holding you accountable because I maybe you all have forgotten. Excuse the hell out of me if you have forgotten, but I think I need to remind you all that the longest serving chief in Columbus, and really one of the longest serving in the nation, he served for 19 years between the years of 1990 and 2009. His name was James G. Jackson Sr. And he was black. And the police department was corrupt then, and it is still corrupt now. You know, police were still violent back then. They were still power drunk, and they were still profiling back then. They just weren't killing black folk here in the city at the same rate they are right now. Because it's a shame that in the last 6 months, CPD has killed 3 black folk, one of which was a kid. Micaiah Bryant, Miles Jackson, Andre Hill. But yet he's bringing in this reform. He's bringing in this real change. He's not bringing in shit. Not shit that I could see, because he's doing it all in the dark. Dana said it right. All skin folk ain't kin folk. Absolutely all skin folk ain't kin folk. And yes, if real reform is to come about, Dana, we the people need to be voting on who our next police chief is. You know, finally, they came out late today. I was reading in the Dispatch because y'all know they shut black media out. They won't allow me to get any of the information anymore that in the press releases that they send to 4, 6, and 10 and to the Dispatch and all the other mainstream, or as they say, establishment established outlets because they claim we aren't establishment media because we hold their asses accountable and we call them out when they're wrong. They took us off the press listserv. So today, just about 2 hours ago, when I was reading the Dispatch, I saw that they are going to allow the public to give comments on the finalists, but they are going to narrow down that list of 9 finalists to 3 or 4 folk, and those are the people that on Wednesday night, they're going to roll out in a virtual interview, town hall, and questions we submit. And let me tell you, I want us all to submit questions to each of those candidates for chief. And here's why I want each and every single one of us to submit questions to the police chief, to the candidates anyways. So when our questions that we have submitted don't get asked, we can see for ourselves and we can know that they really aren't for us when they say, oh, we want you to submit questions, but then they don't even ask the questions that we submit. They cherry pick off the top because they don't really want a chief that's about real reform. I mean, they had the opportunity to bring Perry Tarrant in over a year ago, but they went with an inside guy. They did the same thing. They did this whole big national search for a fire chief, and they went with the inside guy. And then, not just that, they are paying this law firm who are screening these candidates and taking their applications and interviewing these candidates all of this money. And check this out. That firm they're using isn't even in Columbus. It's in Los Angeles. But hey, I'm just saying, where can you submit those questions, though? I'm so glad you asked that question because it is fundamentally important. It is fundamentally important that we do submit those questions, and we submit those questions to this email address. I'm going to put it up on the screen right now. And the email address is, and the reason why I'm taking my time tonight is because I want you all to understand the gravity of the situation and of this topic on tonight, and how important and how it impacts each and every single one of us. It impacts each and every single one of us. We send those emails to policechiefsearch@columbus.gov. And check this out. They've even managed to rig the process a whole lot more than what it should have been. They want us to email our questions normally for a council meeting when you have to submit questions to them and get on the books to speak and to submit testimony. You have to do it by 5 p.m. I'm sorry, not 5 p.m., but by 3 p.m. that same day. But they want us to submit our questions by 5 p.m. on Monday. That tells you right there that if they want us to submit by 5 p.m. on Monday, and the forum's going to be held from 6 p.m. to 7:30 on Wednesday, and it's going to be streamed live, that tells us that they are going to cherry pick the questions. But we already knew that. But we need to submit those questions anyways, because I tell you what, my first question is right out the gate to them is going to be, how are you going to bring and bridge the divide of trust between Black Columbus and the police? My second question is, what are you going to do to deal with that FOP contract that the mayor is doing nothing about? because many of you don't know that the police chief and all of the deputy chiefs, they aren't covered by the FOP under the police contract. They aren't. It doesn't cover those folk because they are in what's called the C-level suite. And I think I need to point out to you, and it's worth noting, that there are no black officers in the C-level suite. It's basically an all-boys club because the only female in the suite is Jennifer Knight. And she was just as corrupt as all the guys in the C-level suite. And the C-level suite is commanders, deputy chiefs, and the chief. And it will now entail the new position that the mayor is creating called the assistant chief. And apparently, for those of you that didn't know, the position of assistant chief doesn't need to be a person who has ever served in law enforcement. Doesn't need to be a person who served in law enforcement. Now, how do I feel about that? Am I happy about that? Yeah, it's good to have somebody at the top of the food chain in the police department, especially within CPD, that hasn't served in uniform. But the mayor will probably choose somebody that's served in uniform. That's just the way the game is played here in Columbus. I'm just stating facts right now. That's all I am fundamentally doing, is stating facts. What I'm trying to get you to understand is that list of candidates in the search for our city's next chief of police went from 34 down to 9 who are supposedly being interviewed throughout this week. Out of that 9, this is where we need to be careful and pay attention, where we've been hoodwinked. 8 of them are people of color, meaning black folk, black or brown folk. Now, ordinarily, I would be happy about that. But I just told you all, and I just tried to explain to you all, that they think by putting a black person in charge of the division of police that's going to build the racial divide. It's not. CPD will still have officers killing black folks. I know it's not the popular thing to say. I know that a lot of you say I shouldn't say it, but a fact is a fact. And the sooner you wake up and you accept those facts, the sooner everything will be all right. Now, what I need you all to know is this next thing right here. And not what I need you all to know, what I need you all to understand and grasp is when it goes into this whole conversation. And the reason why I'm taking time to explain all of this and to take us through all of this is because if we don't understand these things, we can't and we won't know what real change looks like, and we'll just accept anything that they try and give us. Also, another reason why I started this segment and the story out by explaining to you all what consent decrees were and how they are implemented, and giving you a brief history of consent decrees is because you need to understand what they do and what they are. And basically, they are the federal government telling the city that they need to place and put these reforms, these policies and practices into act and bring them into existence and fruition. But what's going to happen, and why Andy Ginther and why Zach Klein, the city attorney, are calling for the Department of Justice, the DOJ, to simply just review, is because they think they have done enough when it comes to reform. They think they've done enough by instituting that police officers immediately begin rendering aid when someone is in need of that aid, when an officer is in front of them. Andre's law. They wear body cameras, that they not use certain military grade weapons on peaceful protesters, that they, certain cases, be referred to as police civilian review board with an inspector general. Now, I need to stop right there. The Police Civilian Review Board doesn't even have subpoena power yet, because the mayor is too afraid to renegotiate. And I shouldn't say too afraid. That's the wrong phrase, because he's not too afraid. Because he doesn't know how to renegotiate with the FOP that contract. Doesn't know how to do it. And the Civilian Review Board won't have any real teeth unless it has subpoena power. And what that simply means is that they have the power to haul an officer before their asses and to get answers. And for those of you that don't know what a subpoena is it simply is the judicial system saying that you must appear before a body or before the court, and you must comply. And if you don't, you will be held in contempt. And you will either face a fine and penalties and perjury and/or jail time. I think it's also worth noting in the broader context of this whole conversation that this country has enslaved black folks longer than they have had police officers. Let me say that again. The United States of America has enslaved black folks more and longer than they have had police officers. Let that sink in while I drink some water. I hope that sunk in and you got the real gravity of the situation. And then they put police officers in place, and then they gave us the 13th Amendment, and the 13th Amendment, you got to read it carefully. The 13th Amendment says all that slave owners have to free all black folk. But with them having to free all black folk, they only had to free the black folk that weren't criminals. Because if you're a criminal, they can keep you enslaved. Oh, you see where this conversation is going now? You see where this conversation is going now? All right. Now that you all understand where and you get the gravity of what's going on, I can go back to the point I was just trying to make with the Civilian Review Board now. That you understand that. I had to throw that little piece in, and because I need to educate you all. Because you aren't getting this type of education and these understanding of the stories when they're covered on 4, 6, and 10 and in the dispatch. So we here at the Unbossed Network and here at at the Unbought and Unbossed show, we have to take time and we have to dive deep within these stories that are relevant to Black Columbus, and we have to break them down to where we understand them and the gravitas of everything that's encompassed and embodied in each of those topics. Because make no mistake, each and every single one of these stories that are covered that only get 90 seconds of airtime on 4, 6, and 10 have multiple layers. It's like peeling back an onion, but they never peel back the onion and get into the real truth of the matter, the real crust of the issues, but we get into them right here. So the Police Civilian Review Board here in Columbus, or issue 2 as it was better known as, issue 2 didn't give them subpoena power because the FOP has such tight strongholds within the city of Columbus, within their contract, that says, oh, we need to negotiate subpoena power into it. So we need to renegotiate that contract. But not only do we need to renegotiate that contract, let me tell you a little bit about the Civilian Review Board. Most of the members on there, and I wish I had time to deal with all of this, but I simply don't have the time, and we're going to get into the Civilian Review Board next week. Most people on the Civilian Review Board aren't about change. There's one sister on the Civilian Review Board that she works for Franklin University. She has this organization that does good work, but that organization got, for what she is the executive director and founder of, got a ton of money the week prior to her being nominated to the Civilian Review Board. Got a ton of money. And then she gets nominated to the Civilian Review Board. You all are smart enough to understand and know what that looks like. Let me progress onward. The Civilian Review Board went from being 9 members to 11 because they snuck in an additional 2. And then he had the damn nerve to put Janet Jackson on there and to make her the chairwoman of the Civilian Review Board. And then they took probably one of the most and God have mercy on my soul. They had the audacity. They had the audacity to take one of the most progressive people, one of the most community-oriented people, one of the most just guys who are just like me and you, Kyle Strickland, and take him through the ringer because he had the audacity to speak out on his personal Facebook page and to say CPD was fucking wrong for killing Ma'Khia Bryant. I'm sorry for not killing her, but for lynching her, because that's what that officer did. Now, I could say that officer's name, but I'm not going to give him any satisfaction of saying his name because he was only 23 years old, had been on the force for only 15 months, still a damn rookie for as far as I'm concerned. He lynched Sister Ma'Khia, didn't even fucking announce himself. Now that's to be a brother who is not only fired, but placed under the jail, but his case should also go before the Civilian Review Board, but it probably won't. Cal Strickland wrote an op-ed in the Columbus Dispatch. A couple days ago, and in this op-ed, he writes that the power of racist narratives and police violence in America is what he wrote about in his Facebook post. What specifically really got him in hot water by all the white folk and by all the politicians and by all the folk who say, oh, we got to let them investigate. Blue Lives Matter. He had to shoot her. He didn't have to fucking shoot her. He didn't have to lynch a child. But what Cal got in trouble for is he said, and I quote, "Do not let anyone tell you to wait for all the facts while they are simultaneously framing their own narrative of what occurred." Let me repeat that again. Do not let anyone tell you to wait for all the facts while they are simultaneously framing their own narrative of what occurred. That's what really got him in hot water. And I told Cal when I seen him a couple days later, I said, bro, they are trying to take you through the fucking ringer. I said, I pray to God that some of those council members on council, when they take the vote, and they took the vote last Monday, not this past Monday, but the Monday before last. And I was speaking to him on Sunday, and I said, Cal, I pray to God that some folk are in your corner that are on council. So you won't hear me say this too often, but I thank God for Sister Shayla. I thank God for Sister Liz Brown, that they were strong enough to take a stand and to say, I stand and I support Brother Cal because he did nothing and said nothing wrong other than what needed to be said. And he wasn't willing to, wasn't afraid rather to speak truth to power. But then you get the old guard. You get Mitch Brown and Priscilla Grandma. Let me not go there. Let me behave myself. You get Priscilla and Mitch, and they want to pat and tap his ass and say, oh, you didn't need to say that. You shouldn't be on the board because you aren't going to be impartial. They were saying everything that the FOP and that the officers would have wanted them to say. Now, I need to take you back to what I told you earlier. All skin folk aren't kinfolk, as the saying goes. Meaning, all black folk, they may be black on the outside, but they don't got your back. And clearly, Mitch and Priscilla didn't have Cal's back because they voted no and said he shouldn't have a spot on the board. But I'm so glad he does have a spot on the board today. I'm so glad he wasn't afraid to speak truth to power. I'm so glad that not only was he not afraid to speak truth to power, but I'm so glad Black Columbus and the community as a whole rallied in support of him. I'm so glad we stood with him. Now, I told you all, Cal wrote this op-ed. He wrote this op-ed, and in this op-ed, he says, we must have the courage to admit that there is a disturbing pattern of police violence and anti-Black racism here in Columbus. That is not an indictment or any individual, but about the larger system. Our leaders need to take meaningful action to reimagine public safety and to work together to save lives. Now, all of you should know that Cal is a brilliant brother. He's an attorney. He studied at Harvard University. Notice I didn't say Harvard Law School, but he studied and obtained a degree at Harvard University. And as far as I'm concerned, if a brother can make it to Harvard and make it out and still be willing to speak truth to power and be in the community and be in these streets fighting the power, He's all right with me. All Cows said, and what he continues to stand for is saying, look, even though I'm on the Police Civilian Review Board, and keep in mind, we need more people like him on the Civilian Review Board. Even though I am on the Civilian Review Board, I'm not going to stop doing what I've been doing my entire life, calling out wrong when it is wrong, calling out racism when it happens. He said, if you think you're just going to give me this job or this appointmentship and it's going to silence me, you got another thing coming. You got another thing coming. Cal also wrote in this op-ed that historically oppressed have always had to fight to make their voices heard, for their lives to be valued and to build up enough power to shape their own narratives. This is often met with backlash by those who feel threatened by a deeply misguided belief that improving the well-being of a marginalized community inherently threatens their own well-being. That's what Brother Cal wrote in that op-ed. So what I'm telling you all is we need to join Brother Cal in that conviction and that courage and that Dr. Kingian and that Malcolm X-ian and that W.E.B. Du Bois and type of courage and conviction and admit that there has been some problems and there is trouble in the waters down at CPD headquarters. There is not only trouble in the waters, but there is also racism that is within CPD. All I need us to do is I need us to stand up and be willing to fight the power and to not stand for any more of their bullshit and to call them out on their bullshit when they're wrong. That's what we need to do. That's all I need us to do. Now, when we come back from this break, we're going to talk about where do we go from here, meaning how can we begin to take what we've talked about, what we've learned, what we now know about consent decrees and everything that goes along with reforming CPD and imagining, as Andy likes to say, public safety here in the city. Now, where do we go with that information and how do we bring about real change? We're going to talk about that. Where do we go from here right after this break?
Sometimes your life won't turn out how you planned it. It turns out how you work for it. How you wake up and you chase that dream every single morning. It's what you give your time and your energy to that takes you to the next level. And that's royalty. You see, many of us believe that just because our father was a drug dealer and our uncle was a drug dealer, that is our life and that is our forever. But I want you to know something. That is only a lesson to show us to be something more. It's a mentality. Roses can grow in the projects if you take care of the soil. It don't matter how big the house is, baby. It's the love inside of it. Take care of your community.
If you're tired of mainstream media outlets selecting news stories and events that don't appeal to Black America, then become a member of the UnBossed Network today, where we are the voice of Black America and providing coverage of events and news stories that you won't hear anywhere else. Visit theunbossednetwork.com to become a member today.
Welcome back to the show. Now, we are entering into the part of the conversation where no longer can we just keep talking and delineating what and stating what the problem is, because we already know what the problem is and what the story and what the facts are. What we need to begin doing now is taking deliberate action. So in tonight's Where Do We Go From Here segment, what I want to spend time talking about is what action steps we can now take to bring about change. So the action steps that we can take is to sign on to the letter that multiple community leaders and community organizations, yes, the Unbossed Network, did sign on to that letter that all Black Columbus orgs and officials have already sent over to the Department of Justice. There's still time for you to sign on. We need you to sign on to that letter. We are going to make a graphic of the website and how to do that and post that up to and on all of our platforms. That's the first thing we need you to do to bring about action. The second thing I'm going to implore all of you to do is to call. Yes, we're going to call and write letters to the DOJ Civil Rights Division. We're going to be putting their number out too tomorrow. And we're going to begin the social media campaign, calling on the DOJ to come in, because the DOJ can't say they don't know we don't want them to come in, because the mayor and the city attorney is telling them to come in and to review. We're telling them to come in and investigate. And they've been talking about it all over the country. So they can't say they don't know we want real change and real reform, because the country and the nation is talking about it. And every time a reporter leads off in the national media, they're how the Department of Justice has gone into to investigate the Minneapolis Police Department, they say, but they have yet to respond and to go into the Columbus Police Department or to acknowledge that they have received the correspondence. So we're going to begin social media campaign. We are going to begin calling and writing letters and sending emails to the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division. And I need you all to sign on to that letter if you have not already, that has been circulating around. Those are the three simple action steps we all need to take tonight. And that's where do we go from here tonight with this story. That's simply where we go from here with this story. Because we can't just sit around and continue to accept this shit. We can't just continue to sit around and to accept the same old, and accept that they are going to change things when they aren't. They don't change things until we get noisy, until we get all up in their damn faces. That's when they change things. Now, they said the other night, I alluded to in the show, that in these last May, we wouldn't have seen the type of conversations and the type of steps taken to bring about reform until we got all up in their faces. What came out their closet. As Stevie tells us, we all got skeletons in our closets. Even you and I. Some of us just have graveyards in our closets. We don't just have skeletons, but we got graveyards. we got graveyards. And that's what was brought forward with those protests and with getting in the streets and getting in their faces is it brought all that to the forefront so we could begin having the real conversations and begin taking a look within and examining and cutting open CPD, beginning to do a full autopsy for everybody to see what is really going on up under the hood. That's what last summer did. Now, what I will say before I close the show out tonight, that there are a lot of good programs going on this summer where folk are going to be in the streets. There's a program being put on by Fresh Start Ministries with Pastor Nikki Hampton and brother Dana Brock, where they're going to be traveling to each and every each side of the city. And they are trying to build and bridge the divide and bring the community back to love, as Dr. King calls us to do. So that's that. He's hosting that. Then there's others going on. There's those weekly walks in the Linden community and in the King Lincoln district. And I believe those are going to be expanding to the west sides and the east sides and the south sides. Then there is a fundamentally good program called Safe Streets that is being implemented and that we're going to talk about in more detail next week. And we are going to have Commander Ali, who is the commander for Zone 2, come on and to discuss what Safe Streets is and why it's important and what it can do for the community. Now, for all of you asking for the link and where can you obtain a copy of that letter, as I just said, we are going to have those links posted to all of our social media platforms, along with the numbers that you need to call, among other things. And with those 3 action steps that we laid out tonight in the Where Do We Go From Here segment. Now, with that said, there is one more phenomenal thing going on where a bunch of organizations, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention this, and we're going to get into this a lot deeper next week. The Heartbeat Movement, De-Escalate Ohio, Ohio Families United Against Police Brutality, and I'm not going to name any more because I'll probably forget one, and then my DMs and my text messages and phone will start blowing up like crazy. So if I didn't name your org, charge it to my mind, not to my heart. Have gotten together, and they have circulated a petition that got over 1,500 signatures, I believe. And they submitted that last week to the Attorney General's office to begin the process to get ending qualified immunity on the ballot. Because not only do we need to end qualified immunity, but we need to reopen all of those cases where police officers have caused irreparable harm and brutality against folk in the community. But that's that. Watch this space, and we'll be right back with closing comments and remarks.
I am so thankful for StreamYard.
I love StreamYard.
I'm thankful for StreamYard.
I love StreamYard.
I am super thankful for StreamYard.
If you're tired of mainstream media outlets selecting news stories and events that don't appeal to Black America, then become a member of the UnBossed Network today, where we are the voice of Black America and providing coverage of events and news stories that you won't hear anywhere else. Visit theunbossednetwork.com to become a member today.
All right, everybody, that's literally all the time we have for tonight. I wanted to cover a lot more, but I am fundamentally exhausted. Had a great time, as I mentioned at the top of the show, and as you can see right back here, Black Tech Columbus. Got a t-shirt. It was phenomenal to have them here in studio, utilizing the space and to work with them in partnership to bring and help them bring their monthly event forward to all of the people in the tech community. And let me just tell you how phenomenal it was to see folk like me and you, black folk, black creatives, and black tech people all in one under one roof, theoretical roof. It was a hybrid experience. About 15 brothers and sisters were in here, and I don't know if you heard them at the top of the show, but they literally were had hung around because the event was from 6 to 8 and we played all sorts of games and things like that, and just had a good time and networking and in community because a lot of us haven't seen people in a long time because we've been locked down. We're going to talk about that too probably tomorrow, but that's neither here nor there. It was just great to see 15 or 20 black smart intellectual folk here, and to have them here. They had another almost 150 who tuned in virtually to watch the conference and the conversation that happened, and we are right now working with them to be able to bring that to you, that conversation to you at a later time, so you can understand and really hear all of these different things going on within Black Columbus. So we hope to be bringing you that conversation very soon. Tomorrow we are going to be covering, and this is important, we're going to be covering the cash bell system, and I am looking forward to sitting down with a good brother in the community, brother Jerry Black, who is a bail bondsman, and discussing that issue and having a conversation around the cash bail bond system. I'm fundamentally and jacked excited out of my mind to have that conversation and discussion, and we will be bringing that to you tomorrow on tomorrow's show. As always, Black America, before I sign off, support Black-owned media, because without you, we truly cannot do this. As you see, I tried to explain to you all how big the studio was, that your memberships and your support helps fund everything from the lighting to the producer. I'm producing the show tonight by myself, but to our producer and to the team of people who helps bring the show to you day in and day out, and bring all of the news coverage of events and stories that we cover, is done through you. And it's the cameras, this TV lighting wouldn't be possible without you. And normally I'm in the studio, which is to my right, your left, about 20 feet to the left on the opposite side of a wall. Normally I'm in there, but I decided to use the set of our Studio B instead of Studio A tonight, that they had their conversation and that we streamed live to their audience. And you all help make all of this possible. So I'm asking you, I'm imploring you all to become a member today of the Unbossed Fan Club. We simply need 10,000 of you to become members, meaning to give the minimum of $50 a year, $50 annually, to support this, that comes down to $4.19 a month, 13 cents a day, cheaper than a cup of coffee, 1 cup of coffee a month. So we're asking for your support. We know some of you can't support financially. I understand. I've been there. I've been in that place. So what we're asking you to do is to share out the content, share out our broadcasts when we go live and we're covering stories, whether it be on the ground or whether it be one of our nightly shows, because we are expanding this network at a rapid pace. I don't think you understand the gravitas of what's about to happen with Black media here in the city, but you may not understand it now, but you're going to see everything that I've been telling you and that we've been speaking about and meeting here, because make no mistake, everybody, it is a privilege and an honor to be invited into your space and to have the opportunity to take up your time. It is truly an opportunity and an honor and a privilege. And I'm so thankful that you allow us, me and my team, to have that privilege and opportunity to occupy your time to bring you the real news, the news from our perspective, our stories, our voices. So I do thank you for the privilege and the honor that you bestow upon us and that you allow us to have. But I appreciate everybody who can give $5 to people who can give 50 to people who can give 500. There was literally a brother who gave $600 as his contribution. I don't look at it any different. There was a sister who could only give 10. I valued that $10 of support just like I valued the 600. Because I know what it means. I know what it means, and I'm thankful for your support because your support helps fund all of this. So I'm out of here right now. As always, Black Columbus, remember to keep it real because your conscience depends on it. Peace out.
Thank you for watching the Unbought and Unbossed Show. If you haven't already subscribed to our channel, what's holding you back from smashing the subscribe button? Don't forget to hit the bell to get notified every time we post a new episode. Devontae will be back here every single weekday, breaking down the most important news stories to Black America. We'd love for you to share this episode with your friends and family. And remember, Black America, to keep it real because your conscience depends on it.